Welcome. We're here with Jamila Curry, wife of retired NFL player Aaron Curry, and I'm so excited for you to be able to hear her story.
I am a maid, I am a chauffeur, I am a wife and a mom. I am all of these things. I'm raising 4 little people that are gonna go out into the world. Maybe I'm not in this fabulous career setting, but I'm doing something that is, to me, more valuable. That's a huge thing.
Michaela Scurlock presents A Pro-Wife Story, featuring Jamila Curry.
Thank you so much, first of all, for sitting down today with me and the willingness of you wanting to open up about your life. So you're from Carolina originally, right?
I am from South Carolina. Yes.
Okay. And you met your husband, Aaron?
I met Aaron on Facebook
Okay.
a long time ago, before it got creepy.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so I was a student at Clemson, and Aaron played football at Wake Forest, and he would go trolling for girls at whatever school they were playing, and he just happened to be, they happened to be playing Clemson that weekend, and he sent me a friend request on Facebook, and I thought, he's an okay looking guy, I'll accept his request. And then we would send messages back and forth and just kind of got to know each other through that. And then later, AOL Instant Message. I feel like I'm dating myself right now. and then we finally met.
So you guys met on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And how long did you guys communicate on Facebook without seeing each other?
We maybe about a year and a half.
Okay,
just
so,
talking.
when I was young, people had pen pals. You were like, I guess, new age pen pals or something along the lines of that?
I remember our first message back and forth. He actually introduced himself and said, hey, my name's Aaron Curry. I'm a student at Wake Forest. And he told me his major, which was sociology. And then, he just kind of made small talk, and I made small talk, and then it just went back and forth, and before you know it, we were really awesome friends.
Did you ever feel creepy about it?
No, I felt like it was a little bit safer because the only people that were allowed on Facebook at the time were college students.
Yeah.
So I figured, how bad could this guy be?
Yeah. Some people say, and I have to ask this question because, people always think, oh, he's a football player, it's so exciting, I'm talking to a football player. Did that ever drive you to talk to him? Or what were your motives?
Not at all. I actually, at the time, worked in the football office at Clemson.
Okay. So
being around guys that played football was not a new thing to me. They were people just like me. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. So I was never starstruck, and I didn't know who he was I didn't know that he was as good of a player as he was or any of that. So, he was just another kid in college.
So fast forward a year and a half, and you guys finally decide to meet in person. So is this like your first date?
No, not a date at all. It was on a whim. Him and his buddies had taken a trip down to Atlanta, and going down 85, there's exit 19 is the Clemson exit, and they had to stop for gas. So he calls me, and he's like, hey, my buddies and I, we're coming back from Atlanta, and we're at this Clemson exit. How far is that from you? I'd like to see you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm coming out of the gym, I'm all sweaty and gross. And I go, 5 minutes. It's about 25 minutes.
Right.
So I get in my car and I head down to where they are. By the way, just public service announcement, don't ever do that. I would tell my daughter, I would have a fit if she did that.
Right.
But I went down.
Don't meet the guy that you have known for like a year and a half on Facebook
Right.
at the gas station.
Right.
This is getting funnier as we go on.
Right. So everything that I would tell my daughter not to do, I totally did. So I met him at the gas station, and he was there with his friends, and it was a little awkward, but I felt like, we've been speaking to each other for this amount of time, so it'll be okay, and I'm young and daring.
So you met, and was it love at first sight?
Not for me so much. I was his friend, and at the time I was also like in and out of a relationship with someone else, so I just wanted to be his friend. He says that after he left, he called his mom and said that he was going to marry me. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, he's an okay guy.
Well, when we come back, I want to talk about how you guys progressed, how you guys started dating, and when you did know, or finally knew, that he was the one.
Yes.
More of a pro-wife story right after this. A pro-wife story continues with your host, Michaela Scurlock.
All right, Jamila, so tell me, when you guys finally met at the gas station, and you said he wasn't really love for you at first sight, but he may have been love at first sight for Aaron. What happened? When did your feelings change?
So as our friendship progressed, I remember just talking about him all the time. And a lady that I worked with, she actually said, you're gonna marry him. And I go, no way. You know, he plays football, he's in another state. I don't want that kind of headache. And so we'll just be friends and everything will be fine. And then I actually went up to one of his games with my father. And my dad has never, ever met a guy that I may have been interested in. But Aaron was just my friend, so it was okay. And so he met my dad, and afterwards he sent my dad a message on MySpace. Just kind of giving him more information about himself and telling my father that he really liked me. And my dad called me and he says, you know, I would never tell you who to date, but I really like this Aaron guy. And I'm like, oh, no, Dad, he's just my friend. It's okay. And then fast forward another year and a half, and I'm graduating, and I accepted a job where I was supposed to move all the way to Arizona from South Carolina as soon as I graduated. And as my graduation approached, I got nervous about moving halfway across the country. So I talked to Aaron about it, because at that point, he was now my best friend. Mm-hmm. So I said, you know, hey, I don't know how I feel about moving across the country. What do you think? And I was really hoping that he would say, don't do it, and kind of give me an out. But he never did. He just helped me weigh my options. And finally I decided that I wasn't gonna go. And so I called him and I said, hey, I resigned. I'm not gonna move across the country, and I no longer have my job here in Greenville. So he goes, are you sure? Is that what you want? And I go, yeah. And maybe 2 or 3 days later, he calls me and he goes, hey, are you really not moving to Arizona? And I say, no, I'm not. I don't have a job anymore. And he goes, I'm so glad. And I go, why? And he says, I never wanted you to go, but I didn't want to tell you not to go, because if you didn't, I wouldn't want to be the reason. I wouldn't want you to resent me for not going. And at that point in my life, that was probably the most unselfish thing that anyone has said or done for me. And that's when it happened. Like immediately I was like, okay, this is the guy. This is someone that can be that unselfish, that can allow me to make the decisions that I need to make on my own, and be unbiased in that, is worth, you know, at least checking out.
So when did he propose? He proposed, so Aaron was at a crossroad in his own life, mm-hmm. because he was about to enter the draft, mm-hmm. going from being a big college star,
yes,
into the NFL. He was very, very highly ranked.
Yes.
And when did he pop the question?
So in terms of date, he proposed to me on March 28th in 2009, so maybe just 2 or 3 weeks before that draft.
Yeah. Were you at all, were you excited about him being in the NFL? Were you scared? What were your emotions?
I had a lot of emotions. There were a lot of things that were happening in our personal life that, you know, kind of, you know, made me anxious and nervous. I was excited for him because it was a dream of his since forever to be able to play at a professional level, and all of a sudden all of these things are starting to happen for him. So I'm excited for him. I'm excited for us, but I'm also, you know, nervous because we're young and life is about to change.
Now, you know, I'm not going to let you get off easy here because you said there were a lot of things going on in our
Yes.
personal life. Oh, what things were going on?
So so I actually moved up to Winston-Salem maybe a few months after I had turned down that job, and we actually lived together. Another thing that I would tell my daughter not to do, or my sons, but we lived together. And then he was going to Arizona, the same city that I would have been working in had I accepted that job. But he went to Arizona to train, and I moved to Charlotte. So it almost felt like a breakup, because even though we were still together, we were moving to separate cities after being in the same home for almost 2 years. And so after I moved to Charlotte and he's in Arizona, I also find out that we're expecting our first child, and was totally freaked out and not ready for that. And for a while, I wasn't sure if the reason he proposed was because that was something that he was planning to do, or if it were because we were now about to have a child. So,
how do you live with that?
I don't know. I for a long time it was because I loved him so much, and because he was and is my best friend. I was like, okay, I don't know, and I didn't want to insult him by asking him, if that was the reason why. But fast forward a few more years, we're already married. We have 3 children at this point, and it was right before our anniversary, and we're driving in the car, and all of a sudden he says, I didn't marry you because I didn't ask you to marry me because you were pregnant. And I just it was a weight to carry, because I was never sure. I knew he loved me. I knew we were friends. I knew that, we would be together no matter what, but I didn't know if the reason he proposed when he did was because I was expecting or not. And so I just carried it with me. And when he finally said that, just out of the blue, it's like he felt it maybe, but he said it, and I just kind of bawled, and then I just felt relieved, because
and this
now
was
I knew.
many years later, right?
Yeah, this was so maybe about 3.5 years after we were married.
All right, well, when we get back, I want to talk about that transition from college into the NFL, not being married, being married. We'll be right back.
A Pro-Wife Story continues with Michaela and Jamila Curry.
All right, so Jamila, now you have the ring.
Yes.
I have to ask this question because, everybody, the whole world thinks, oh my gosh, you're about to get married to a guy who plays in the NFL. As a matter of fact, I read an article, and I want to read this because this is an article that came out about you back in 2009, 2010. It was online, and the person actually that wrote the article, she stated, Jamila is living the dream. and I thought that was really interesting, because I didn't know if that individual had spoken with you, or if she just maybe assumed you were living the dream, as so many people are. So tell me a little bit about that transition from having, no husband, no children, no NFL career of your husband's to deal with, to all of a sudden everything is changing. Tell me, was it a dream?
You would think. Maybe at the time, yes. But it was also a very scary thing, because once again, I find myself in a situation where I'm moving all the way across the country, except it's not Arizona, it's Seattle. And I feel like you can't get further from North or South Carolina than Seattle, Washington. So we moved out there, and I really had no expectations of, what it was going to be like. We were expecting Maxwell at the time when we moved out, and it was hard being away from family and friends and being in a place where I didn't know anyone, and he was gone all the time working and practicing and studying film and coming home tired, and I'm tired and lonely. So that was a different part of it that I feel like no one talks about or prepares you for. But yeah, I had the guy and I had the ring and we had a home and then there were cars and, you know, there's Sunday game day, which is fun, but it's not, I guess it's not what a lot of people think it is.
Why? The money? Doesn't the money make you feel great? Everybody thinks money makes you feel so great. Money, a lot of people think money is the answer to all of our problems, right?
Yeah. Yes, if only it were that easy.
Yeah.
So that part was great. Being able to now go from being broke college students to, you know, coming from a background where neither one of us were coming from a wealthy background. So being able to go out and buy whatever you wanted, that part was great. But after a while, I feel like the newness of it all just kind of wears off because, okay, I have another handbag, or okay, my husband drives this really awesome car, but we're still us, you know, we still do the same things every single day. We still, you know, are trying to figure out what it's like to be married. We're still trying to figure out, I don't know, everything in life. We were babies. And so, you know, the money part was great. It was nice not to have to worry about how this bill was going to get paid. But I wouldn't call that the dream.
When you said trying to figure out what it means to be married, what was that like, that transition from being single, all of a sudden you're living with someone, sharing the same house? Was it everything that you ever dreamed of?
Being married?
Yeah?
No, not at all. I think girls, young ladies, women in particular, we get fed all of this stuff about what it's supposed to be like when your knight in shining armor comes and he sweeps you off your feet and you ride off into the sunset, and every fairy tale ends with happily ever after, but they never tell you, you know, what the Cinderellas and the Belles and the Princess Jasmine's, like what happened to them after the big wedding scene. No one talks about, you know, how your husband leaves socks on the floor everywhere and you're the one that has to pick it up. How, you know, I don't know, there's just all kinds of things in marriage that happens. And I think for me, I thought that once you say I do, this like magical switch just kind of goes off and everything is perfect. And it's not. You're talking about two people with two different thought processes. Sometimes, you know, just ideals about how life is supposed to happen, and you're bringing those two people together to build one life together, and you're not always on the same page. And then you throw in, you know, money and success in football and all of that.
And that success, did that bring maybe some unwanted fans, some unwanted attention, and in particular other women?
Yes, I think, well, I remember there were a few times where I got some like crazy messages from just these random women about my husband. And I remember one in particular, Aaron hadn't even been in Seattle yet. And this woman sends me this message about how they had this and that in Seattle. And I'm like, he hadn't even been out there. Is this what we're gonna do now? Okay. And so for that made me a little insecure because I felt like, okay, well now I'm pregnant, and there are all these women out there and they're beautiful, and when you're pregnant and you're hormonal, you don't always feel like you're the prettiest. You don't feel beautiful. You don't feel like, you know, whatever you want to feel like all the time. And so I had my insecurities about, you know, well, what if, you know, someone does try to hook up with him and that's what he wants to go for? What if I'm not, you know, pretty enough or smart enough or fun enough or young enough anymore? So I did have those insecurities, and you know, guys, sometimes they get all that attention and that ego boost. It's awesome for them, and I don't think they ever mean any harm, but they don't understand, you know, like it does, you know, hurt, you know, to watch you have your ego stroked and you just kind of be like, yeah, you know, well, whatever.
Did you feel like you had to keep up with a certain image?
For a while, yes. I felt like, you know, I had to wear makeup. I had to look a certain way. And then there were times where I was like, you know what, I don't care. I'm just me. Love it or leave it. It is what it is. And so we had a little riff for probably the first year and a half of our marriage. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Why are we here? This is dumb. I don't want this. And I would cry. I would cry because I didn't know what to do. And I know that when we decided to get married, both of us said that no matter what, divorce is not an option. You know, no matter how we feel, no matter how ugly the days might get. And also for us in Seattle, it was gloomy all the time. And so, you know, here in the South, you get all 4 seasons. And when it's sunny, everyone's out and it's fun. And then when it's rainy, everyone's kind of chill out and inside. Well, it was gloomy all the time in Seattle. So we were always like chill and nothing. And so we realized that when we were there, you know, we were just gloomy people too, if that makes any sense. So that first year and a half was just really hard, adjusting to how new everything was.
A pro-wife story returns in just a moment. A pro-wife story continues with Michaela and Jamila Curry.
Jamila, you said it was gloomy when you guys first got married, and there were just, you know, ups and downs, obviously expectations of all of a sudden being married, the NFL, the burden that sometimes that money brings. Did you guys at any point encounter any issues with family member? Were there added pressure, maybe people wanting things from you? Did you feel obligated to giving people things?
Yeah, I think that just kind of comes with the territory. And like I said, the newness of it all is, you know, in the beginning, it was just so new, being able to go out and purchase anything that you wanted to purchase. And then I know for Aaron, most certainly, I think he felt like he had an obligation to change everything for his family because they have come through so much. And of course you want to, you know, take care of your mother, and then you have brothers and you have friends, and it's kind of like, well, when I get on, everybody gets on. And so you feel that way for a while, and it's okay for a while, and then things start to add up and you go, you know, I don't know if that's, you know, the wisest way to spend this money. Like, we've had this fun, and again, the newness wore off of it all. And then you start to have children, and you have to think about their futures, and, you know, just making wise decisions. And sometimes when you have to say no, you know, that doesn't always go over so well.
Did you find that the friends that used to be your friends are still your friends? Did you have all of a sudden new friends? That status, did it change who you were as a person?
For me, no. My friends, my circle of friends is very tight. My friends that I still have now have been my friends since before Aaron. And of course, I've made some awesome friends since the NFL or through the NFL, and that has been great. But my circle of friends have been with me before all of this and are still there. And I think a part of that that helped with that was because we were coming into this and having children. So, you know, when you're pregnant, you're not out and partying and doing everything else that everybody else is doing. And then when you have a child, you're not leaving them. It's different when you have your child in the same place that you grew up, and you have your family around you to help you with babysitting or taking care of them, where you do get that break to go off. But it's a lot different when you're across the country and you don't know anyone, so you don't really trust anyone with your first newborn baby. So I didn't have that opportunity, I guess, to just go out and kind of be wild and free, where I could develop those other relationships. So for me, it didn't change very much.
When you had some of those emotions of loneliness, how did you deal with them? Like, did you let Aaron see that?
I didn't, and I think this was part of the problem, is that because I thought I had this idea of what the perfect marriage looked like, And when he came home, I didn't want to be the nagging wife. I didn't want for him to come home and me unload all of my emotions on him. I just wanted him to be happy and comfortable. And because I did that, he didn't know a lot of the ways that I was feeling. And if he didn't know, he couldn't adjust or help me through that. And so I think, I was a big part of some of those, rifts in our marriage because I didn't say a whole lot. So I internalized a whole lot of things.
So you're the type of person who just gets quiet?
Yes. Yes, or I clean.
Oh, you clean? So your house gets really clean?
Yes, and the house gets clean and he comes home and he goes, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Nothing, I just felt like cleaning."
Yeah. Do you ever feel like at any point that you just want to share your emotions with him or with someone, especially when you're so alone?
Sometimes I would call my dad. He was actually a college student. He did everything in reverse, and so he had a lot of time during the day. And I would call and I would share with my dad, and then my friends that were back east, I would share with them as well.
What was the one thing that you feel like you've taken from being in the NFL as being the most valuable thing?
Okay, so the most valuable thing, the most valuable takeaway for me from the NFL would be the relationship that we did develop. There are a few guys like Matt Hasselbeck and his wife Sarah that we had relationships with, built friendships with, and Kelly Jennings and Justin Forsett. A lot of those guys really encouraged Aaron and just poured into him and invited him to chapel. He would turn them down and keep inviting him, and finally he did. And I would go to a Bible study that Sarah Hasselbeck, she hosted at her home, and I would go with that, and she would just pour into us other ladies, and just developing those relationships, those friendships with the people that were around us were great because they understood where we were. They understood what we were going through. They understood the transitional part of it all. And they really understood the need to be in fellowship with one another and also to have a relationship with Christ. So they got Aaron to go to a chapel, which then led us to going to a conference called PAO, which completely just changed our lives.
A Pro-Wife Story returns in just a moment. A Pro-Wife Story continues with Michaela and Jamila Curry.
So Aaron played for how many years and then he retired?
4 seasons.
4 seasons. Mm-hmm. And he now coaches at
Yes.
UNC Charlotte.
Yes.
And now that he's coaching, has life slowed down at all?
No, not at all. Actually, I think there are times, especially during the season, where it's actually a little more hectic than when he played. Because when you play, you show up to meetings, you show up to practice, you show up to training and physical therapy, and that's it. But when you're a coach, you have to prepare for meetings, you have to prepare for practice, and then you have to show up to meetings and practice and more meetings, and then there's recruiting and all kinds of other things. So it's a lot more involved, I think, to be a coach than it is to play.
So do you have any weaknesses, or are you just a strong woman that just goes through every day as if, just adjusts to anything and everything? Tell me. Is there anything that Jamila Curry deals with?
Yes, I am not as strong. I think some people think that I think I present myself as having it well put together with juggling being married and having 4 children all under the age of 6 and still kind of doing my own thing here and there. But I think what I battle with the most is insecurity, because I never thought that this would be my life. I never thought that I'd be a stay-at-home mom. I always pictured myself having this just fabulous career where I'm off doing this and doing that, kind of doing my own thing, still married, still wanting to have children, but not necessarily a stay-at-home mom. And I feel like we're in a time where being a stay-at-home mom isn't the cool thing to do. It's great to be a woman, to be strong, and to have a career, and to do all of these amazing things. And so sometimes I wonder if I measure up. I get into a mode of comparison, and I wonder, am I doing enough? Am I, is this it? What I had in mind for my life and the direction that it's gone in are two totally different things. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but every now and again I get in a little funk and just battle with those insecurities.
Yeah, isn't that something that you think all women deal with?
I do. I think there's always something. I think, wondering if you're pretty enough, if you're smart enough, if you're talented enough. Does anybody see me? Am I in this alone? Am I the only person that's feeling this way? I think, we're pumped with so many ideas of what we should be and that we should have it all, and we don't get the balance that we need. And so we try to have it all, and we fall out of balance, and then we're a mess on the floor. And I think it's something that all women go through, whether we say it out loud or not.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are not courageous enough to say it, but I think the more we say it, the more we learn from each other, the more we can actually move past that and recognize that, like what you're doing, stay-at-home mom, raising 4 children under the age of
6.
6?
Mm-hmm. 6
I
and
mean,
under.
that is more than some of us would even want to think about.
Yes, I am a maid, I am a chauffeur, I am a chef, I am a nurse, I am a wife and a mom, I am the boo-boo kisser, the storyteller. I am all of these things. And I think someone once said, what if your only purpose in life was to make someone else great? And for me, every time I remember that, it's like a good kick in the pants, because I can sit at home and I can say, oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom, I don't do much. But then if I really think about it, I'm raising 4 little people that are gonna go out into the world, and I pray make a change for the good. And so whatever I'm giving them here, they're taking that out with them when they leave this house. And I'm responsible for that. That's a huge thing. So no, I'm not jet setting off to this place, or I'm not, maybe I wear sweatpants every other day, or maybe I don't have makeup on every day, or maybe I'm not in this fabulous career setting, but I'm doing something that is, to me, more valuable than all of that, because now there are 4 little people that are looking at me, and whatever I teach them is what they're going to take out.
And what I think is so important, because you have a daughter too, to teach her that you don't have to wear makeup to go to the gym. I'm glad you're saying that you don't wear makeup every day, that you wear sweatpants, because everyone needs to do that. No one, I think, should, get caught up in that image that they want to portray, whether you are, like you, married to a retired NFL player, or whether you are married to someone with another profession. I think, and I applaud you, and I want to thank you for saying that, because I think that's a message that many people don't hear often enough, particularly women.
Thank you. Having a daughter is a game changer. We had 2 boys first, and then we had a daughter, and I nitpick. It's easy for women to nitpick and say, this is out of place, or my hair doesn't look great. But I don't want my daughter to think that her worth is in how she looks. I want her to know that it's great for her to be smart. I want her to be strong. And what you look like on the outside, it's fine to want to look nice, but that's not the end all be all to who you are, and that's not where your value lies. So now I have to watch myself, especially when she's around, to make sure that I'm not downplaying what I do, or, feeling unworthy, because I don't want her to see that and internalize that and then become that.
A pro-wife story returns in just a moment. A pro-wife story continues with Michaela and Jamila Curry.
Jamila, We just finished talking before the commercial break about your annual retreat that you put on once a year called Girl Talk.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, Girl Talk is, like you said, an annual retreat that our foundation, the Family 59 Foundation, hosts in my hometown, Charleston, South Carolina, every single year. And we gather a group of high school girls, and we go to this place called Camp St. Christopher. It's like a campground, and there are cabins and the beach and all kinds of really fun things to happen out there. But what we do is we bring them in, and we try to just, meet them where they are. Like being a teenager is just a difficult time in life. It's an awkward time, and we know that sometimes our young ladies have questions that they don't necessarily feel comfortable addressing with their parents, and we want to make sure that they have a safe place where we can just fellowship and have fun and talk about real issues that are happening in our lives, as well as our faith in God and how Christ just kind of helps navigate us through all of that.
And this is something that you were led to putting on or starting after you had entered the NFL with Aaron, or is this something that you wanted to do, you knew about, that you wanted to do many, many years before?
I always knew that I've always had a passion for teenagers, especially teenage young ladies, because that was probably one of the most difficult times in my life, just trying to navigate through the emotions and life happening. And so I've always had a soft spot there for young ladies. And so I knew that I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what until 4 years ago. And everything just came together. We knew that we wanted to interact with young people. We knew that our faith was a huge part of that, and you feel something so deeply inside and you just want to share it with others. And we wanted to do that for them and hopefully get them off in a direction that is going to be great for them later on in their life, but also give them a safe place where they know we have someone that we can talk to that have our best interests at heart.
And if someone would want to find out more about that retreat, where would they go online?
They would go to www.girltalkcharleston.com.
Great. And as we are unfortunately having to wrap up, and I hate this because I would want to talk to you more and more, I do want to ask you this very important question. What is it that you want to leave with those watching this episode? What would you want to leave with them as a message?
I would want to say that you are enough. Like, even wherever you are, however whole or broken you are enough. Your dreams are important. You are important. You have the ability to carry things out. But no one can do it but you. Like, you have to make yourself do it. And I don't care what the world has to say, what anybody has to say about you, what someone has planted in you. Like, those things are not true. You are enough. And I think that's probably my message to everyone.
And that's the most beautiful thing, because I think that is the message that so many of us, no matter if we're young women or older, I don't want to call them older, but more mature women, yes, all of us need to remember that we're enough just where we are. And it's beautiful to see that it's not the money that defines you or what your husband has done or is doing, but what defines you is who you are and what you're doing with that. And I want to thank you for that, especially since I know you have little kids around here. You have lots of things to do, and letting me come in and talk to you is probably not necessarily a priority. But I do want to thank you for being willing to do that. And I read about you online that you were a recovering perfectionist. And from one, recovering perfectionist, I'm going to say recovering, but actually I still am a perfectionist. So
I won't tell anyone.
Okay, I want to ask you, number one, what does that mean to you? And number two,
how do you recover?
How do you recover? Because I need to know.
Okay. Well, I grew up where, in my grandma's home, everything had a place and everything was in its place. So for me, everything has a place and everything is in its place, and everything should be neat and tidy. However, I now have 4 children, and they don't care about neat and tidy and places and any of that stuff. So for me, I guess what helps me to be a recovering perfectionist is that my children don't allow me the opportunity to perfect anything. So I've had to learn to be more flexible in my everyday life. Things change the drop of a hat, and so that flexibility allows me to not have those expectations that really none of us can meet.
That flexibility probably means letting your kids fold some clothes.
No.
No? Okay, all right. I see, I'm trying to do some therapy with myself, because for me it means letting my kids fold the clothes, and even though they are not folded the way I would want them to be folded, I let them do it.
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
They can put things away. I may still go behind them if they're asleep and put them where they go. But it does mean that sometimes letting them help in the kitchen means that it's not going to be clean as I'm cooking. Or maybe their shoes, maybe they put them in the closet, but they're not lined up.
Is it just the kids, or is it Aaron too?
It's him too.
Okay, I figured that. I just have to say that for the record.
It's totally him. I'm really talking about him and kids.
So this is a message for all the kids.
Yes.
Get it. What's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is not being enough, not being good enough at something. I think that's it. And then how I get over that is just understanding that there's always going to be somebody better than, and there's going to be always someone that I am further along ahead of. And so I think that would be my biggest thing. But then I also have to remember too that I am where I am for a reason, and God has given me purpose. And even when I feel like I'm not enough, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
And I want to thank you for saying that, because I think it's so important that we echo that, because you're beautiful. And a lot of people looking at you, might think, well, why does she feel that way?
I think it's just human nature to always want more. We live in such a fast-paced society where we're never allowed to slow down enough to be satisfied with what we have and where we are, because things are constantly moving. And I think that's just, like I said, human nature.
Well, thank you so much, Jamila. Thank you for letting me come in to your house. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for showing us who you are. Thank you for doing all the things that you do. And most of all, thank you for sending the message and being such a great role model.
And thank you for allowing me to share with you today.
This has been a Pro White Story, presented by Michaela Scurlock and the Carolina Panthers.